but it's just the beginning of the onset of the rain, and it'll go through the night tonight. 2:30 in the afternoon in Myrtle Beach, intense wind gusts with Florence now gusting over 65 miles an hour. Power's now going out, but still looking at the palms. They're still doing quite well. Some of the pine trees might have more issues, but this is the worst of Florence so far today. Gusts that are higher than that. We're really feeling the full force of what Florence still has to offer here in Myrtle Beach. Those conditions are pretty rough, folks. Let me tell you about it. The right side of my body here is just stinging from that horizontal rain that's hitting us right now. And let these pictures be a reminder to you of just how forceful a Category 1 hurricane can be. All right, we're dealing with the western edge of the hurricane right now, and gradually as we get closer and closer to the center, the winds, as you might expect, will ratchet up a little bit. I want to bring in Dr. Erica Navarro, who's been really monitoring those conditions minute by minute. Dr. Navarro, a couple of questions for you here. First one being, you know, how intense could the rain bands be? I know we're in some pretty heavy rain right now. How intense could the rain bands be as the center gets closer to us, and what's the duration of those rain bands, do you feel, for a place like Myrtle Beach?
Yeah, so embedded, Mike, within those rain bands, maybe that core of circulation moving off towards Myrtle Beach, we could be looking at 3-inch per hour rainfall rates, and even some areas isolated with 7 inches in some of these regions. It's not out of the question. And even if we look at the radar, Mike, I've got the radar estimates up here, and the radar's estimating 4 inches in the last hour and 3 in other areas, and these estimates are likely underdone.
Yeah, it's just the rain has really picked up in the last maybe 15 minutes or so here. Let me ask you about that eye, if we can even call it an eye anymore, maybe more or less the center of circulation than anything else. Is that getting closer to us? Could that potentially come over Myrtle Beach? And if so, when do you think that would be?
Yeah, we're still seeing what looks like the circulation on the radar. It's moving steadily west, Mike, well to the west of Wilmington now. But if you look at the future radar, we do see that core of circulation lingering off the coast and moving towards the Myrtle Beach area overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. So on the HUR radar, the high resolution radar, by 5, 6 o'clock, it looks like that center of circulation could be near or over Myrtle Beach.
We've already seen, Dr. Navarro, a lot of reports around the Myrtle Beach area of down trees, down power lines. I'm worried about that combination now of these impressive rainfall rates, horrific rainfall rates, that we're really now moistening up the soil and potentially then setting ourselves up for even bigger issues with down trees, bigger issues with power lines that go down because the ground's going to become so saturated.
Yeah, it's the impacts, and even, Mike, every little detail matters here, right? The more saturated it is, the easier those trees will come down. And we've seen reports of power lines and trees down well away from the center of circulation. So
you know that distinctive sound of wood cracking as the trees are tumbling down with the power of Hurricane Florence hitting North Carolina. That's Morehead City. I'm meteorologist Paul Goodlow live in Morehead City, and we are still getting pelted. Those.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. We are in a hurricane, and sometimes we do experience technical difficulties because of that. We'll get right back out to Paul Goodlow as soon as we can, get back out in the field. But let's go ahead and see where we've been today in terms of the rainfall amounts. We're continually updating here these totals that are getting in, and we've seen some extensive rainfall totals across North Carolina today.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you know from the beginning, since we've been watching for this storm and hurricane, it has been most unpredictable. But what has been predictable and steady is our concern about the heavy rain and the flooding, and that is on course for what we have been anticipating all along. We have, this morning, issued at 11 o'clock, removed the evacuation order for the evacuation zones in Charleston County, Berkeley County, Dorchester County, and for Edisto Beach, which had continued under the zone evacuation in Colleton County. That is, they came out from under the evacuation order at noon today, Charleston, Berkeley, Dorchester, and Edisto Beach. That means that the evacuation order is still in effect for evacuation zones in two counties only. That is Horry County, the zones there, and Georgetown County, the zones there. The school closures and the state office closures are still in effect in Horry County and Georgetown County, that is the entire county. Again, all school closures except those in Horry County and Georgetown County are now immediately returned to the local officials. All of these orders, of course, are done in close concert and constant communication with the state officials, the county officers, municipal officers, and the emergency personnel. Also, all state offices that have been previously closed, all state offices previously closed will be open for business on Monday. So I'll say again, the evacuation order is still in effect for the evacuation zones, all of them, in Horry County and Georgetown counties. And that does not include the entire county. However, those entire counties. However, the school closures and state office closures are still in effect in the entire counties of Horry and Georgetown. Again, all school closures except those in Horry and Georgetown counties are now, right now.
Conference with South Carolina's Governor Henry McMaster giving an update on the situation in South Carolina. He reiterates that the areas that were under evacuation orders in Horry and Georgetown counties remain in effect. So those that were told to evacuate cannot come back to their homes or businesses at this time. However, he did want to let people know that while schools remain closed in Horry and Georgetown counties, all other schools are going to be open. In addition to that, any state offices that were previously closed are now scheduled to reopen once again on Monday. All right, we want to get back out to the field now. Our Dave Malkoff has arrived in Santee, South Carolina. This is kind of sandwiched in between Columbia and Charleston. So you're getting wet there as well, Dave. What's the latest from where you are?
Yeah, Jackie, you can see the water tower behind me saying Santee in South Carolina here, but we don't need much water from the water tower. It is all dumping on top of us at this point. We've had this kind of steady, moderate rain throughout the evening and the early afternoon.
Because they think they can get gas. It's very tough to find gas today. Pumps are either out of gas. Most stations, basically everything is closed because there's no electricity. So right away, you've got to find a station that has gas, because a lot of times the pumps will work even though the station is closed, but that's almost impossible. So a lot of folks getting out today. There's a lot more traffic on the roadway today by far than yesterday and the day before. Yesterday, it was just almost a ghost town as we were in the throes of those hurricane-force wind gusts, especially the first part of yesterday. Last night, too, at Ghost Town, we had a curfew from 10 p.m. To 6 a.m. this morning. But you can see behind me this road, which typically floods, but not this severe. Water's not going to go down when it's raining this hard. Again, another very heavy rain squall. The big difference today, the wind gust about 25 or 30 miles an hour, maybe a 35-mile-an-hour gust, not pushing 50 or 60 miles an hour like yesterday. Traffic just coming around the Exxon station looking for gas.
Technical difficulties, so we'll certainly get back out into the field here in just a second. All right, let's get you up to date with the latest on Florence here. Here's some of the rainfall totals that have come in across eastern North Carolina. You can see some pretty exceptional totals here. 30.58 inches is the highest one so far, and many of these numbers will come up and through the coming days. And why is it going to be lingering? Well, if you look down at the satellite, look at the things that are around Florence, or should I say the lack of upper-level steering that's around Florence. The jet stream is well to the north. These are those strong upper-level winds which could take and pick up Florence and move it out. But with nothing surrounding it to really give it a push or a pull, Florence is likely and is expected to sit and linger off in this area until it finally gets enough northward motion to get into and get wrapped up in that jet stream.
over here, and I heard there's even white caps. And imagine if you were up there and you looked out your window and you saw what this thing was doing. Take a look at this. Some sort of a barge or old boat or something, but this is certainly a very heavy item. And, you know, we see this often. There's a sailboat over here in the park, but it's not until you get up close with these. And if this was in the water, you know, a quarter-mile away or something, it wouldn't look very big. It doesn't.
Absolutely. This flooding is going to go well into the next week, and we're watching many rivers in both of the Carolinas right now. We want to get to the Public Information Officer, Nathan Walls. He's in the Fayetteville area, and Fayetteville of great concern at this hour due to the Little River as well as the Cape Fear River, both on the rise, which could reach record levels. Are you with us, Nathan?
Yes, ma'am, I am. Thank you for having me.
What's the latest situation there?
Well, we're very concerned because we're seeing some rivers rise faster than predicted with the Cape Fear River and the Little River.
Here's the center of circulation. Here's band number 1, and here's the nastiest one, band number 2. What's going to happen tonight into tomorrow with those bands? Let's take a look at the high-res future radar from the HUR model, and it seems to initialize reasonably well with that interior band and then a primary band. But, you know, you can argue over the details, but look at what happens as we get to late tonight. The primary band really sets up over the Cape Fear River region, and then in early morning hours it continues in that same area. Let's just add up these numbers through tomorrow morning. How much rain? This is from now until, say, breakfast time tomorrow. More than a foot forecast by this model, and approaching 2 feet in some of these areas. So this is not just about counting the raindrops, obviously, and there's a whole lot of them, but what this is leading to is a flood event that is already very bad and is going to rival and maybe some in local spots exceed what has happened in the past with the likes of Matthew and with Floyd. So it's really, really difficult, the situation that we're dealing with here. And when we talk about what's going to happen in Lumberton, we already know that the river is going to rise very, very quickly.
Is moving farther and farther north. And, you know, with the jet stream being so far north, there's nothing to grab the system. It's sort of adrift in this area of high pressure, and that's why it has not been moving. So this may be something that we see more of going forward, these storms that are sort of cut off and not able to be pushed along, and that makes all of the impacts last that much longer. What we're watching now on the radar is the center of circulation right there, and then this primary rain band, which is coming up into Wilmington. It's actually a couple of bands which are now beginning to get closer together, and so it looks like we're about to get whacked here with rain in Wilmington. We have had 12 to 18 inches, generally speaking, in Bladen and Columbus and Pender counties. So flash flood warning going until 5:45 in the morning. And you look at the radar here, and you've got very heavy rain just off to the west of Wilmington, very heavy rain just off to the east here. These are rainfall rates, probably about 2 to 3 inches per hour in the high end. But then you see what's offshore right in there. There's a lot of heavy rain that is getting ready to come in. So it's really going to be stepping up. And already we've had some reports of water rescues in Whiteville, which is just a little farther off to the west. And let's get out to Alex Wilson. She is in Wilmington right now. And Alex, you know, this is a story that's going to continue all night long, and amazingly, even into tomorrow morning, maybe even in the middle of the day tomorrow, you're still getting heavy rain there.
I know. Yeah, it's really hard to believe that we're still getting these strong winds. Woo! That'll get your attention. Strong winds, very heavy rain still coming down periodically. We look at the wind field for Florence, and absolutely we are still in that realm of tropical storm force wind gusts. So absolutely still seeing that potential for 40 to 50 mile per hour gusts. We have been watching very, very heavy rain move through as well. As Carl mentioned, 12 to 18 inches and more to come. We could see an additional 12 inches of rainfall.
Going to do in terms of rainfall. We think the rainfall potential is going to be just terrific overnight tonight. This is the forecast track and intensities from the storm. It's not an impacts cone. The impacts are going to be well outside of the cone here in the parts of North Carolina and into Virginia. And we're talking about terrifically heavy rain coming up into the upstate of North and South Carolina and making its way into Virginia as well. And that's exactly what we have seen so far. Look at this number, 30.58 inches of rain there in Swansboro. in North Carolina. That is an unbelievable amount of wet weather. The previous record associated with the storm was 24 inches, so we have just completely blown that record away. And you might be wondering, well, how much rain is that exactly? Well, it's half as much rain as we would get in this area in an entire year on an average annual basis. So, that's the amount of rain that it is. And also, Mark, another way of thinking about this is that an inch of rain is equal to 2 average backyard pools being dumped on an acre of ground. So in this case, you'd be talking about 60 backyard pools being dumped on an acre of ground.
So we've seen about 1 to 3 inches of rain across the greater Columbia, South Carolina region today. So far, so good. No reports of flooding. We're at 5 points. This is a spot that typically floods, even during a heavy thunderstorm. But so far, the streets are pretty clear from any standing water. So it's been a light, steady rain. Because of that, we haven't seen too many issues with flooding. And you're also noticing the power still on. We've had very minimal power outages, only a few thousand, and they've been able to get those restored pretty quickly. However, we're in Richland County. If you were to go over the Congaree River in Lexington County, a little bit different story. They had 14 roads closed overnight due to downed trees and utility lines. Now the crews were able to get those up and cleared and opened again overnight. And also, they had 10 calls for the emergency services due to the weather. And unfortunately, there was help needed with one patient with non-life-threatening injuries in West Columbia when a tree fell on her home. That's the concern. So stay home, stay put, don't venture out and try to explore. While the weather's not extreme here in Columbia, we still could see 30 to 40 mile per hour winds, and that could down trees. And we already saw a death in South Carolina because of a downed tree. We don't want any more. So stay safe out there, stay put, and wait till things improve.
Always good advice there. Thank you, Chris. The University of South Carolina in Columbia is saying that it will now resume classes on Monday. This is only a notable thing because originally the university had planned to stay closed until Tuesday. So for students there, if you did go all the way back home, say back to your parents' house for a couple of days, change those plans. School's back on Monday. We've got a lot to follow, though, with Tropical Storm Florence, now Tropical Storm. Let's bring in Storm Specialist Carl Parker. Carl, several little spin-up tornadoes possible right now, and an active tornado warning as we speak.
Yeah, we got a report from earlier tonight of people saying that it sounded like a 747 over their house, and they went outside, and the boat was across the street. So we've been definitely getting some tornadoes. And there's a new warning right now that is for Brunswick and New Hanover counties.